Welcome to the Front End Nerdery Podcast, a podcast about front end development and design. I'm your host, Todd Libby. My guest today is developer advocate, accessibility advocate, speaker, fashion icon, and clothing mogul, Chris DeMars. Chris, how are you today?
I'm doing all right, brother. How are you?
I am doing well, or as well as I can be, I
Yeah,
guess.
I heard that. I heard that.
During all this stuff. So why don't you introduce yourself? Tell listeners a little bit about yourself.
Yep. So the name's Chris DeMars. A lot of people just call me DeMars. If you call me Chris, I might look around as if you're talking to somebody behind me. I am a developer advocate at Rocket Mortgage. I focus a lot on front end, a lot of accessibility stuff, design systems, UX. So that's kind of the work in a nutshell. Outside of work, um, let's see, I am heavily tattooed, so I love getting tattooed. I am a pizza connoisseur, favorite style being Detroit style. And if you don't agree with that, you can't be my friend. I love cryptozoology, ufology, paranormal, supernatural, all that fun stuff. I like riding dirt bikes, paintball, fishing, being in the woods, all that cool stuff. So yeah, that's kind of me. And my life revolves around horror. I love horror, everything horror, horror movies, horror memorabilia, all of it. I even have horror tattoos. So
You even got uh, the horror themed podcast too, right?
yes, I do. Tales from the Script. Tales from the Script. Front end podcast mixed with a little bit of a horror. I haven't recorded in a long time. Since when I right at the end of living in Denver. I think the last episode I recorded was either with Diana Rodriguez or it was with Jesse Weigel, or it could have been Gant Laborde. I don't know. I forgot, but all my podcasting shit is in storage. So it'll come.
Right.
Once I get this office finished, it'll come back.
Yeah, yeah. Can't wait for that. I've been jonesing about that too.
Yeah, I gotta get you on that too, by the way. It'll happen.
Yeah,
I promise.
definitely. So let's get started. I have some questions for you, and we'll jump right in. So my first question is a standard question, really, to everybody that I have on. How did you get started in your web development or design journey?
Oh, I got started as a young child. I first got started in QBasic when I was probably 10 or 11. Just little things here and there, writing like little programs. A friend of mine in school told me about QBasic. And then we also had a HTML, like a web class in grade school, which is really cool. So that's where I learned like HTML 4.0, right? And then I kind of just stuck with it the whole entire time. I think there was like a break somewhere in there, but wasn't too long. And then let's see. So I started in 96. I started in web development when webmasters were a thing. I would consider myself a webmaster. And I did it on and off. I did it as a hobby, a freelance, independent contractor. And then later down the line, I decided to go back into school. I didn't need the degree just to prove people wrong because people didn't think I would do anything with my life. So it was kind of a big FU. And got a job with legit benefits and a real paycheck. And it's just been uphill ever since.
So yeah, the QBasic I had dabbled in a little bit. I kind of skipped that, and because I was a little bit before that, the time when there wasn't CSS, so being long in the tooth.
Oh yeah.
So, I wanted to touch upon the developer advocate role that you have, and you've had a few, right?
What do you mean?
Like you've had a couple developer, yeah, if I can say it right, developer advocate roles.
Actually, this is the first one.
That's the first one. Oh, okay.
It would seem like I was a developer advocate. I guess you could say I was like an unofficial dev advocate from all the community work I did, right? But my title at previous companies has always been front-end developer.
Oh, gotcha.
But the
Gotcha.
community stuff was, I hold community near and dear to my heart. So
Right.
I always consider myself an unofficial developer advocate. So
So, anyways, let get into the question now that I know. Now that I know the full background, what is a developer advocate for our people that are listening that don't know?
it's such a loaded question. There's so many different answers that you can get depending on who you talk to.
Right.
What I always tell people in the community, and even like internal or external, is I am the voice for the internal and internal external developer communities. I am here to teach, learn, mentor, and provide knowledge on web technology for everybody. Like to me, that's what developer advocacy is. Um, I mean, and that could take, many different forms, right? I have 3 technical community managers on my team who I think they are the backbone of my team. Hands down, they are the backbone of my team, and they are amazing, amazing, amazing people. They're not so like quote unquote technical, but they're DevRel. They are the voice for the community, both internally and externally, depending on what piece that they're doing. So to name drop a little bit, Cassandra Ferris, she is the very first ever technical community manager at Rocket Mortgage for sure, but maybe all across the FOC. So she does a lot of the conferences, handles a lot of that work, external stuff. Alyssa, she is also a technical community manager. She handles a lot of the internal stuff that we do, as far as different events that our team puts on, stuff that we do where we bring external people into the company to do events. And then Rachel does a lot of the university outreach in the community, or people that are going into the developer space and the software space. She does a lot of that, and she also has a recruiting background, and she's awesome. She's a bundle of joy if you ever get a chance to meet her. Always has a smile on her face. She handles a lot of the university stuff. And she's also getting into speaking as well. So she just gave a talk a couple of days ago at I believe it was MSU. I think it was virtual, but I know she nailed it out of the park. So those 3 women definitely are the backbone of our team. But you don't have to be a technologist to be DevRel. If you're in DevRel, you're in DevRel.
So on that note, how does one get into developer advocacy?
You just got to find some place that's hiring. Like if you're already doing the work, the main thing is getting involved in the community. There is an article out there about Black Matter developers. It's called Black Matter Developers. And it's about like the 1%, it's either the 99% or the 1% of people who don't do anything at all, which is completely cool. Whatever's clever, whatever, suits you, your mileage may vary, your lifestyle, whatever the case may be. But those are the people who, if they did actively contribute, they could make their foot into the DevRel world, speaking at meetups, podcasts like this, streaming, community work, just attending events, writing blog posts. Doing those things are going to put the stones in place to lay the path to developer advocacy. Right. And I mean, there are companies that hire, associate developer advocates to like get your foot in the door. Like, yeah, you might do a little bit of writing here and content creation, and you might, stream, but you never really thought of doing developer advocacy, but you love giving back to the community. You're already in that right direction to be in a role like that. So, but they're out there. There's a lot of places hiring for developer advocacy roles right now. And you don't have to speak always. Like, you don't have to do that. You could be a content creator, a technical blog editor. Like, all of these things are DevRel. Like, it's not just developer focused. There are a lot of facets within this genre, I guess you could say, of the community and development.
Yeah, I see a lot of, on Twitter especially, a lot of, we're hiring a DevRel lately. So yeah. On that, what is the best thing, or the one thing about being a DevRel that you enjoy?
Being in the community. Like, as well as I do, I love the community. And when we were locked down with COVID, everything got stopped, events got stopped. That sucked.
Yeah.
That was a shitty experience because I had conferences planned. I was supposed to go to Lithuania to do an event, and then everything came to a halt. And it's like, great, now what do I do? Like, how am I going to connect? So we had to find more outlets. And at that time, and I know you noticed this as well, Twitch streaming took off for the community.
Yeah.
Because that was a way to interact in real time with people all around the world. I don't know the numbers, but I am sure pre-COVID to during COVID, the number of Twitch streamers had to have skyrocketed. Had to have. I started my own Twitch stream because I needed a way to talk to my people and communicate in real time with people all over the place. You know, chatting in Slack is cool and Twitter is cool and whatever your Discord, whatever your outlet is. But being able for somebody to see you on camera, and yeah, you can't see them, but being able to see you and interact and vibe, and you know, if you're playing music during your stream, you know, that gives them something to listen to. That was the way to connect. And I think we all lost a lot of disconnection during the pandemic. And I mean, we're still fighting the pandemic, of course.
Right.
But now that in-person events are coming back, because I just came back from Kansas City Developer Conference, KCDC, last week. It was an in-person event. It was, you know, there was definitely policies and stuff like that to make sure everybody was safe. If you didn't have a mask on, you'd get booted from the event. The mask always had to be on at the event, unless you were speaking. And as long as there was 6 feet between you and your audience, you could take the mask off, and you didn't, you know, encroach on that, which was great. We needed that. We needed that in-person event. We needed that energy. We needed that vibe. It was cathartic. I needed that because the only in-person event I've been to since COVID was that conference at the Wisconsin Dells, Kalahari. And that was cool. But there was a bunch of people from the Midwest at KCDC because that's one of the best, in my opinion, one of the best Midwest events to ever go to. And it was needed big time. And you'll get that feedback from anybody that you talk to, you know, that, you know, it's friends with you or friends with me or just anybody in the community that was at KCDC. It's something that we needed, and it's good to see that in-person events are coming back as long as there's COVID policies in place.
Right. Yeah, that's one thing that I'm looking at, you know, but I have one conference, Connect Tech, that I have tickets for.
I'll be there. I'll see you there.
Yeah, this will be the first time we've seen each other since Burlington in 2019. Yeah. So yeah,
2 years.
It's been a while.
Dude, that's what I'm saying. The people I saw at KCDC and good friends, I haven't seen them in 2 years. Yeah. And we'd be at events together all over the place around the country. And I mean, you know, Cassandra, who's on my team, her and I are really good friends. And when we flew out, I think there was at least 10 of us that flew out from Detroit that work at Rocket Mortgage or other companies around the state, but we're all good friends. And the moment she saw me in the airport, she ran up to me and we just held each other. Like, that was an amazing fucking feeling. And it was something that was needed. But yeah, dude, we haven't seen each other in 2 years. That was the year. That month was May of 2019 is the month I quit smoking, and I haven't smoked a cigarette since. So that's, you know, that stands out to me because UX Burlington was the last time I smoked a cigarette. But yeah, dude, it's been 2 years since we've seen each other in person. So I mean, that's a long time.
Yeah, it is. And I've told you this, and you know, you've heard me say it as well. That Burlington event, that your talk was, you lit a fire under my ass again, as far as accessibility goes. I had been kind of, you know, getting sloppy and getting lazy about it, but yeah, your talk, Henri Helvetica's talk, and Fred Harper's talk, you guys knocked it out of the park. I'm glad I did that track instead of the other track, because you guys were great. Yeah, it has been a long time. I was thinking about that the other day too, because right after that conference, I went right down to Boston for an event apart. I was at that one, and then the last conference of 2019 that I had gone to was in Denver at an event apart, and that's it. and I'm itching to get back out there, and I'm even itching to start talking at these conferences. So
Speaking of, and Denver, was that an event apart or was that Smashing?
that was an event apart when
Because I
we got
forgot we
together
saw
for
each other.
lunch.
Yeah, we got
Yes.
there too. So that it hasn't been 2 years,
Right.
but it's been over a year because I moved back to Michigan in end of May, beginning of June. So it's been well
Yeah,
over a year since we've seen each other. So
that
maybe a
was
year and a half.
yeah, that was October 2019 was in
Yep.
Denver. So
So
yeah,
20. Yeah.
when
So
we
it's
get
almost
yeah
been it will be 2 years.
yeah
So yeah.
yeah. So we're
And
still right.
That Mexican place we went to was bomb.
Oh yeah, it was.
That food was bomb.
Yeah, it was. I'm glad we picked that.
Yeah, that was a good spot.
Yeah, it was. So yeah, yeah, I've got Connect Tech. I'm doing two talks myself coming up in October, virtual. But I'm like you. I want to be with people to actually see people and talk to people face to face. So
Yep.
um, you know, the community thing you spoke of, that resonates with me because when I'm not having to recharge after a full day of
Yeah.
conference talks and information, I want to be mingling with everybody,
Yeah,
meeting everybody.
for sure.
So with that, let's swing over to the front end side of things
Mhm.
for a second. What is one of your, and I think I have a good idea what one of you.
I have a feeling I know what you're going to ask me.
What is one of your? I guess there's no other way to put it. What's something about front end that you really don't like? That's a pet peeve, and I don't like using pet peeve really, but something that really.
There's so many
why don't I
things.
just say it? What's the thing about front end development that frosts your ass really?
JavaScript.
Yeah, yeah.
JavaScript. Let's see. People that don't care about accessibility. What else? Responsive CSS frameworks and or utility libraries. I don't like those for personal reasons. Let's see what else. People that just don't think about performance or don't just care about performance and how their stuff loads. That gets on my nerves. There's a whole slew of things and I think that just comes with experience and being in the industry for so long. Like, let's say you're 6 months in and you don't know what you don't know. You know what I mean? And that's not your fault. That's nobody's fault. But you can fix that situation. You know what I mean? But when you're behind, when you're behind the line and you're seeing all these things happening, and especially if you work at a company and you start talking about these things now, and this has happened prior years, way back in the day, you talk about accessibility and why it's important, performance and why it's important, all these things you can do, then you get pushed back. Then 6 months later, shit hits the fan, and they come crawling back to you asking, "Can you fix it? Can you fix it?" And it's like, why didn't you just listen to me from the beginning? You know what I mean?
Right.
Those are my things that I don't like.
Yeah, and I'm on the same page as you, but I even lately will go as far as saying, if somebody's got a use case for it, fine, knock yourself out and do it. I prefer not to use libraries or frameworks. There are some frameworks that I will use that I check out, tinker around with, toy around with, Next.js, Gatsby, blah blah blah, all that stuff that we've experimented with. But it all boils down to, for me anyways, is how accessible is it, and what, if not, in most 9.5 times out of 10 they're not.
Nope.
And
Nope. Yep.
how can it be fixed?
Yep.
Because it's just seemed like they're shoved in our faces.
Oh yeah.
Every so often.
Always. And I think that's the big problem with JavaScript too, is like, now I'm not harping on JavaScript okay, it does what it does. And I write a little bit of stuff in React. I know how to do just a tad bit in Angular, a small bit in Vue, but I know how to mess around with Gatsby a little bit, and I can do a little bit of vanilla JS, whatever the case may be. But it's just the more we progress in this industry, the more JavaScript is making things harder, in my opinion. You take the JS to do something that can natively be done in HTML. You take the JS that can natively be done with CSS, but you want to just make it do CSS and make it do HTML. It's like, why? What are we doing here?
Yeah.
JavaScript isn't accessible for one, and two, all these SPA frameworks, whether it's Vue, Angular, or React, they're not accessible by default out of the box. I did the Ally Rules podcast with Nick Steenhout, and we talked about that. The one major issue with those types of frameworks and libraries is their JavaScript. There is no markup. You, the developer, are creating the markup, right? It's not accessible out of the box. I think Reach, was it Reach, that one that Ryan Florence did? It was like a React counterpart, but it is accessible. I think it was called Reach. I don't know. Check that out. I know it was an accessible like React clone, but I could be totally wrong. And if I am, let me know, because I talk about it at conferences. I should probably stop. But I mean, that's the problem. Like your React app, if you're using Create React app, whatever the case may be, it's not going to be accessible out of the box. Mm-hmm. It's just not, because you're the one that's creating the components. And yeah, the components that you're creating, the base of those components is JavaScript, but everything that goes between that return statement, that's markup or JSX. And that's not, if you don't create that with accessibility in mind, your app's going to be jank and it's going to be inaccessible to your users. Straight up, flat out.
I think it's Reach. Yep. I'll throw that link in the show notes too. I just found a site the other day that is an SPA. And so I, of course, checking it out. And it had over 200 empty span elements in it. And an absolute nightmare with a screen reader, an absolute nightmare with, keyboard accessibility wise, and a complete cluster accessibility wise, period. And, I give the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they don't know. More times than often, I don't know about you, but I come across people that they just don't know.
Right.
And that's why, going back to why we advocate, because we have people in our lives, you and I, and a lot of other people in accessibility that have disabled, people in their lives.
Yeah.
So why do people need to address accessibility in their projects? Is my next question.
Because the answer is simple. We are not the users. Like we are the user. I mean, to put a fine point on it, we are the users. But what we are designing and developing and what we think look cool does not matter. Let's be real here. It doesn't matter what we think looks cool. My favorite color combination is lime green and black. Yeah, does that pass color contrast? Sure it does. Is that a great experience? Probably not. You know what I mean? Or like a dark purple and black. Like, I think that's a dope color combination. That's how you used to do stuff back in the day. It'd either be lime green and black or purple and black. Black background and then the text. That was cool in 96, 97. Is that cool in 2021? Probably not. Was it cool in 2020, 2019? Probably not. We don't think about the bigger picture and the user base. The user base is everybody. Anybody that can access the web is a user. You don't know if they have a disability. They're not going to outright come out and be like, yo, hey, how you doing? I'm so-and-so with A, B, and C disability or impairment. You know what I mean? And I say this a lot too, and I brought this up in my talk at KCDC that I did. I did 2 talks. I did one with me and Cass. Her and I did a talk on mental health, neurodiversity, and web accessibility. Amazing talk. First time we ever did a co-presenting talk together. We had about 70 people. Great feedback from that. The next day I did a solo session on it's called Common Accessibility Pitfalls, Climbing Out When You Fall In. And it's all about low-hanging fruit. And we're not making separate experiences for separate disabilities or impairments. We're making one experience that works for everybody. And then I brought up the whole accessibility overlay tool. I'm not mentioning any names. I brought that up because I used to think accessibility simulators were cool. I thought they were cool back in the day. And by back in the day, I mean like a couple of years ago when they first hit the scene. I thought that was sweet. Like, oh, this is awesome. You're providing this to user, but come to find out, not all of them are that accessible when it's just throwing a skin over the actual experience. And I was telling the audience, like, don't do that. You shouldn't need an accessibility simulator or a skin to put over your experience. Because if you do, something's wrong, right? One experience for everybody. That's the way it should be, in my opinion.
Yeah, those overlays don't work. I've had a back and forth with a couple of people from a certain company that won't remain unnamed about their product. And I put it like this: adding a line of JavaScript to somebody's website code makes it about as accessible as me putting on a pair of Nikes and me becoming Usain Bolt.
Right.
It's never going to happen.
No, there's no way. There's no way.
And if those talks are online, I'd really like to watch them because I don't know if they were recorded, but
no, KCDC wasn't recorded. I am doing this talk. I got 1, 2, I think I got 3 or 4 more events till the end of the year, but I don't know if any of them are going to be recorded. But I have slides if anybody wants to. I don't even want to give out the slides because the slide deck is such a surprise for people that have never seen the talk before. Like I don't want somebody going to Connect Tech to see the slides because then it'll just ruin the experience.
Right.
But
Okay.
More or less, it's about the why behind the accessibility, my why, which I always start off with. People around the world, how many people have a disability, what kind of disabilities are out there. I talk a little bit about POUR. I had these conversations with you the other day when I was writing my talk up until the time I gave my talk, about POUR and levels of conformance and what that's going to look like in the future.
Right.
I talk about, colors. I talk about, semantic markup and ARIA and when to use ARIA and when not to use ARIA and roles and all of these things that I consider low-hanging fruit. That's what that talk is about. Common accessibility pitfalls, climbing out when you fall in. And it's a really, really rad talk. It's not horror themed like a couple of my talks, but it's got a different theme to it. But it's a clever title, Common Accessibility Pitfalls, climbing out when you fall in. If you kind of just go down that rabbit hole, you might understand the theme of the talk. Just saying.
Well, I'll look forward to it because Connect Tech is in November. So
yeah, I know for a fact I'm doing a CSS talk at Connect Tech. That one, the Common Accessibility Pitfalls, might be a backup talk, but I think I'm doing that at Momentum DevCon in Cincinnati next month, October 15th. I think I'm doing that one. Momentum's a cool event. Yeah, Momentum DevConf. It's going to be at the Hyatt. I think it's the Hyatt Regency downtown Cincinnati. I know it's at the Hyatt, October 15th in Cincy. I'll be there 14th, 15th, and heading back to Detroit the 16th. Next week, me and Cass are going to be in Columbus. Cass is from that area. I'm driving down, and we're doing our co-talk, our mental health and accessibility talk at the Women in Tech Con Columbus which is going to be really, really cool. So that was picked up, and I just found out recently that, hey, this is what we're doing this, on the 29th of September, so 28th. So
Cool. And definitely looking forward to Connect Tech, because I gotta, meet our mutual friend Homer.
oh yeah, Homer's
Will be
great,
there
dude.
too. Yeah. So
You haven't met Homer yet in real life, have you?
haven't well, not in real life. We've talked over, and he was a guest on my podcast.
Homer's great, man.
Yeah. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to the whole thing, meeting a bunch of new people. But anyways, get back to the questions here.
We went off on a tangent a little bit.
Well, that's all right.
Hey, we're free flowing, dude. We're vibing. It's organic. Who cares?
It happens. And I was, to be honest with you, I was going off the script a little bit. So I'm still, it's a low budget production on this end.
Hey man, we're here for the ride, brother.
Absolutely. So
YOLO.
Give me, YOLO indeed. What is a barrier that disabled people face on the web that most I want to say devs or designers? What is a barrier that disabled people face on the web that they would not think about?
What is a barrier that disabled people on the web encounter that design teams don't think, devs and design teams don't think about?
Devs, design teams, you name it, organizations.
Oh, there are so many answers to this, and it kind of all goes back to that low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, you can give me one or two.
Color contrast.
Yep,
is a big one. One of the biggest ones. Yep. Color contrast, and I think keyboard, usage, screen reader uses with the keyboard. Those things are not thought of at all, in my opinion. Design team, they might know a little bit about color, but like I always say, accessibility starts with your design team. You know what I mean? Your devs aren't building the designs. I mean, unless they have a little bit of, that kind of experience. But 9 times out of 10, they're not designing the experience. It's the designer or the marketing team or the branding team that's doing that. Design teams have to understand a little bit about the web content accessibility guidelines in order to create components, or design components, UI components that are accessible. They have to understand Nielsen's design principles, in my opinion, so they can understand how to build out the UX and what a good UX looks like. They should know color contrast and the ratios behind them, like 7:1 for AAA and the other, for AA. You don't have to memorize it. You don't have to know the algorithm behind that, but knowing what works and what doesn't work, and that's as simple as not as simple, but as painless as using just a contrast checker, taking color A and taking color B, seeing if it works, flip those colors, see if it works. If it works, you're gravy, you're golden. Okay, now what? Well, run it through a color vision simulator. Change it to Deuteranopia, Protanopia, Tritanopia, monochromatic. See what that looks like. If you know somebody that has a color vision deficiency on your team, have them come over and look at it. Because I didn't know there were people that I worked with at a company once who were colorblind, and I knew one person, she was deaf, she was a developer. But people like QAs and stuff like that on the teams that were colorblind, and they came up to me like, hey, Chris, I can't really make this out. I have Deuteranopia. I'm like, oh, damn, I didn't know that. Like, thanks for telling me, because we're building these experiences and we were designing them too, because we kind of did both sides. But we were using, branded colors from a color scheme and all this other stuff. And I'm like, all right, well, we need to change these things around, because clearly if this person can't see it and this person can't see it, then chances are the hundreds and or thousands and millions of other people around the country are not gonna be able to see it either. So I think that's a huge, huge one. Color contrast, keyboard accessibility, and screen readers, because nobody's closing their monitor to test with a screen reader. Nobody. Some. I don't want to make that statement, but most people, they're listening to the screen reader while they're looking at the screen and using a mouse, or using the keyboard, but tabbing through the experience, but also with their hand hovering over the mouse, just in case. You know what I mean? You can't do that. You can't do that. Take the mouse away. Close your monitor a little bit, or like if you're on a big monitor or something, like dim the screen. There's plugins that do that, or like put something dark or something that translucent that blurs the screen over the monitor, so you can just listen to what's going on. Use the keyboard, Control, Option, Shift, Tab, etc., to get through that experience. See what happens. You'd be surprised.
Yeah, I used to squint test
Yeah.
a lot.
Yep.
And I also use the because I'm primarily a Firefox user, so I
Same.
use the
Same.
Vision simulator on the DevTools. which
There's
is
a
great.
Vision simulator in the DevTools in Firefox.
Oh yeah.
How come I never knew about this? I literally had no idea, dude.
I'll have to show you after we stop recording.
Yeah, definitely. Show me. Share your screen and show me, because I'm like, what the hell? Or maybe I did, and I just forgot because I'm still have COVID brain, and COVID brain is a thing.
It is a
So,
thing, yes.
Yeah, it
Yep.
sucks.
Yep. So, I know from the time we've known each other how you do this, but for the listeners out there, how do you advocate or I don't want to say persuade. I have it written down here as persuade, but I don't like using persuade. So how do you advocate to clients or people or organizations to start practicing accessibility?
I don't beat around the bush, and I say there are plenty of companies that got sued. Do you want to join the list? That's all I say. And if they're like, oh, you're full of shit, Chris, then that's when I break out the numbers and the statistics and the graphs and the case statements and the articles of all of these other places that have been sued, and all these other places that are just like your company that have been sued. I like to bring up Bank of America.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the biggest banks in the country, right? You think, oh, they're high and mighty on a pedestal. Nothing bad can happen to them. No, that's not right, because they're the same, electronic entity, web entity that everybody else is. You don't get special rights for having a website. You know what I'm saying? Everybody is the same. It's a level playing field. I don't give a shit who you are. But I mean, depending on the organization, you have stricter conformance levels to follow. But still, if everybody's trying to hit AA and people aren't hitting AA, well, you have a chance to get sued, and there are plenty of people out there that will sue you for everything that you have. So that's kind of the route I go.
Yeah, I do a little bit of a different approach. I do a little diplomacy, but when that reaches its end, then I use what I call a Domino's pizza card.
And I don't even eat Domino's anymore because of all that shit that went down with Domino's.
Same here.
Yeah.
Same here. Yeah. And they could have spent what, 32 grand to fix it.
It was like 32 or 35 to fix it. How many? I mean, that's chump change. That's chump change in this industry. Like, just you don't even have to pay me to fix it. I'll just do it. You know what I mean? But yeah, they wouldn't do that, and they lost big time on that. And what I find is so funny is that I went to Domino's.com one day and I ran an Ally audit, and I was using Axe or Lighthouse, whatever the case may be. And the homepage scored really well. It scored really well. But the problem wasn't the homepage. It was the mobile app, because the mobile app wasn't accessible to the user who needed it because they had low vision or they were blind. That's what the problem was. It wasn't Domino's.com, the actual website. It was the mobile app where they could not order a pizza because they couldn't use it.
And I remember reading, because I read it a little bit more into it, that when they were in court, and I think it may have been like the federal court, that they said, well, he could have used the phone, but he had been he'd been on the phone twice for 45 minutes.
Yep. I remember that.
That's not accessible either.
Yeah. Well, he could have just drove to the store.
Yeah, a blind guy.
But that's not, speaking of driving, that bothers me too. Is like, people make the assumption like, well, blind people don't drive. What? Why do blind people need cars? Are you serious right now? What kind of statement does that mean? Just because they're blind, they shouldn't have a car?
Right.
Get out of here with that shit.
Yeah.
Blind people can have a car if they want.
Yeah. And touching on that, why do blind people need an ATM machine?
Right.
That's one I've heard a lot too.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, why is there braille on an ATM machine? Blind people don't drive. It's like,
Right.
come on.
Yeah. I know, dude. Trust
Yeah.
me. It's just this idiocracy out there in this community, and not just the society, the community as a society, not the developer community. You
Right.
get these dumb things that people say, and yes, I'm going to use the word dumb because it's dumb. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Well,
Yeah.
blind people don't need cars and ATMs, and it's like, what do you think these people are? They're human fucking beings.
Right.
Get
Exactly.
real.
Yeah.
Jesus, shit gets on my nerves.
Yeah. Yep. So my last question before we get to the final three is, we probably touched upon this a lot actually, but I'm going to ask it anyways. What's the number one thing as accessibility professionals we can do as far as advocating for accessibility, in your opinion?
Oh, just talk about it more.
Yeah.
Talk about it a lot more. You know, when I got into the accessibility space, there wasn't a whole lot of talking about it. The only person, one of the few people I know who was actively talking about it was Marcy.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't follow Marcy on Twitter, definitely follow Marcy Sutton. If you're listening, she's amazing.
Yeah.
I've been friends with her for a long time now. She was really the only one, besides, other people I watched, but she had a different vibe to her talks, and that kind of just resonated with me.
Mm-hmm.
She's the reason I got into accessibility.
Mm-hmm.
When I started on the web, they didn't write about accessibility in web books or in HTML books. Yes, all attributes has been a thing for a long time. Accessible tables have always been a thing for a long time because tables are technically semantic, and semantic markup by default is accessible. But she is the one that kind of lit that fire for me, as I did for you, to see that the world is bigger and accessibility is very, very important. And this is something we need to care about, and we need to be cognizant of it and be practicing it. And by doing what she's doing, advocating, teaching, and knowledge sharing all about it. So I think that's the one thing that we can do, because you can sit behind the computer all day long and build accessible experiences, but if you're not sharing what you're doing, nobody else is going to know that that's what you're doing, right? Or that it matters. Like, it needs to be talked about, it needs to be shared, it needs to be normalized, like mental health in the workplace and mental health in general. It needs to be normalized because it's a thing, or it's not something that you can ignore.
Yeah. I will mention too, another person that I had been following for the longest time that really got me more into accessibility in the past, when I first started, and that was Derek Featherstone.
Derek's awesome.
Yeah. So two people that I really enjoy, not only reading their stuff, but listening to. And Marcy just had a webinar the other day, as a matter of fact.
It was on Egghead, right?
Egghead, yeah.
Yeah.
It was real good.
I didn't get a chance to see it.
Real good. So let's get to the final three questions.
All right.
These ones are easy. You can, answer one word answer, or go into it a little bit. So first one is, what about the web these days that excites you and keeps you excited in what you do?
The new stuff that I keep seeing in the world of CSS, that's getting me excited. Adam Argyle and Una and all the people, Miriam, all the people in that space, just the newest tweets that are coming out with like accent colors and nesting, and there's so much cool stuff coming down the pipeline. Next to accessibility, CSS is my jam, but not in the jam stack. You see what I did there?
Yes, I did.
It's like my jelly, right? But I love CSS. I'm a huge advocate and supporter of CSS and CSS developers, because yes, we are out there. I am not a JavaScript developer. I specialize in accessibility, and I specialize in CSS and SAS and design systems and UX. There's so many cool things. So that talk that I'm giving at Connect Tech, so there's a talk that's being featured. I'm no longer giving that talk. There's another one that's being replaced with the talk I'm giving, and it's called "It Came from the Browser." This is a sequel to my believe in the power of CSS talk. This talk is horror themed, and it's going to focus and talk about, well, I'm going to be talking all about the newest stuff that's coming down the pipeline. I'm not going to share too much, but I still have to write it. But it's going to be a dope talk. And yeah, I'm really, really stoked, really looking forward to it. I think the audience is going to really enjoy it. So
Cool. If there was one thing that you could change about the web today that we know, what would that be?
less JavaScript. But the reality is, I mean, we need it. I get it. We need it.
Mhm.
The one thing I would change about the web, I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Well, to help you out, I've had a wide variety of answers to getting rid of tech bros all the way to the web was a mistake. So,
Oh wow. Well, I guess that runs the gamut then, doesn't it? Elitism. I think I would say elitism. And it's not just tech bros. It's elitism across the board. Like nobody deserves to be up on a high horse. I'm sorry. Like you are equal as just as I'm equal. We're all equal in this. We're all human. Nobody should be put up on a pedestal. And I think there's a lot of that in this community. And I think that needs to end a lot. I don't like it.
Yeah, total agreement there. And I would add to that, hero worship kills.
Yes.
And I keep thinking whenever I discuss this kind of a topic, the elitism, it brings me to that, argument that we see on Twitter, every other day, it seems.
All the time.
Is HTML, CSS a
Yeah.
programming language?
Yeah.
If you have, whatever, and I tell people, if you think it is, go with that. You run
Right.
with that.
Yeah.
And if you don't think it is, that's your, thought. And I will respectfully, disagree, but that's your look at it. And I have to respect that.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
So last question for our time here is going to be, what's your favorite part of front-end development that you really like the most, that you nerd out over? Let's see what I did there with the nerd out over.
Nerd out. Oh, yes. It would have to be accessibility stuff and CSS stuff and design system stuff. Like design systems are so awesome to me. I've worked on them at other companies and advocated for them at other companies. I just the front facing stuff is the coolest in my opinion. You know what I mean? Like the layouts and the colors and trying to dissect Flexbox and dissect Grid and making things that, in years past we weren't able to do because everything was one dimensional. You know what I mean? And like Flexbox, yes, Flexbox is one dimensional, but with Grid being two dimensional, it offers stuff that, years prior with other like Bootstrap in 960 and Foundation, like early on in those days, you just couldn't do it. It was either all vertical or all horizontal. Well, now, with Grid, you can lay out things vertically and horizontally, have them sit on top of each other and lay them out in ways just like a magazine, like Jen Simmons says, you can do, and Miriam, you can do so many things like magazine layouts today. And I highlight some of that. I highlight both of them and Rachel Andrews in my one CSS talk, which I'm going to highlight them again in my new CSS talk. It's just the possibilities at this point are endless. And I think that's starting to scare some people because, now we have variables in CSS where before you had to use Sass. And if you weren't using Sass, you might have to do some fancy JavaScripty stuff, right? You have like Houdini, which I don't know much about Houdini, but it's like a mix between the CSS and JS world.
Yep.
SVG. I mean, I know SVG is an older thing, but you can do so much with SVG and CSS nowadays. There's just it's awesome. It's awesome to be working on the web right now, I think.
Yeah, and our friend Carrie Fisher does some great talks about accessible SVGs.
Yeah, Carrie's awesome.
She just did an awesome talk at ID24 today. So
yeah, I probably missed it because this machine is still any money. This is not going to be done by the end of the night.
Well, they're recorded, so that's a good thing.
Yeah.
You can always go back.
Well, I'll have to check it out then for sure.
So yeah, those are all the questions, and it seemed like this went by quick.
Well, we did start a little bit early. We started before 4, so
we did, and I still don't have my shit together, and this time zone thing is totally.
Got to get it figured, dude. When it comes time when you guys don't do daylight saving time, that's really gonna freak you out.
It is.
Because when I used to fly to Phoenix, when I worked, at the last company I was at, I found out, we don't do daylight savings time. I'm like, what? What do you mean? You're like, oh yeah, we don't follow that. Like sometimes out of the year. Like, how do you just not follow it?
Yeah.
So it's really gonna screw you up, dude. Trust me.
Oh yeah, it is.
So what time is it right now in Phoenix?
Right now it's 1:45.
1:45. So it's 4:45 here. So that's what 3 hours. 3-hour difference. I can't math. So yeah. So you're in Pacific time.
Mountain.
No, 3 hours for me is California. Mountain is 2 hours. Central is 1 hour. So you're in Pacific time right now. But you should be in general Mountain time. See what I'm saying? Because you're directly below Denver. You're below Colorado, and that's Mountain time.
Well, below Utah, in the Mountain time zone, but with the same time as Pacific.
See,
that's messing me up.
Yeah,
and I had to pull up a time zone map for this.
See, that's what I'm saying. And like half of the year, you guys are back in general Mountain time. So then half of the year, you're 2 hours behind me. Half the year, you're 3 hours behind me on Pacific time. It's really, really wonky. I don't know why you moved there.
Well, it's one step closer to San Diego.
Okay. It's too hot, man. I love going to Phoenix, but wow. Like I never went to Phoenix in the summer.
Oh, when I came out here in June, and I landed, it had rained for like 5 or 10 minutes before I landed.
Yeah.
And it was 116 with 40% humidity. And
I
was like, absolutely not. This is gross. I need to get inside immediately.
Yep.
And I'm not going back outside until the temperature drops.
Wait until you get hit with a sandstorm.
There was one, I guess, a few days before I came out. So yeah, that'll be great.
Yeah. Yeah. Apparently they happen a lot. They're called they're called haboobs. It's an Arabic term.
Yep.
And a couple people I work with at the office down in Phoenix, they get hit with them all the time because I think they live right outside of Phoenix in more of like a more like rural area ish, and they get hit with them all the time.
We're in that area. So I'd like to close the podcast with my guests, letting the listeners know what they have currently going on and where people can find you.
Sure. Yeah, no problem. One thing I do want to do, disclaimer, anything I've talked about in this podcast, any opinions are my opinions and not the opinions of my employer. It's all me, G. Let's see. You can catch me on Twitter, Salt N Burnham, SALTN BURNEM. If you're a Supernatural fan, you'll understand that reference. Our friend Homer is a Supernatural fan. Let's see. I am going to be next week. I'll be in Columbus at WitCon. I will be in Cincinnati in October 15th at Momentum DevCon. I'll be at Atlanta Code Camp in October. I think like the first week of October, doing a talk that I have to rehash. It's on an Electron and React. I haven't done that in 3 years. So that was the first and ever Electron and React talk I've ever done, or like React talk I've ever done. and it got picked up for this event. So I have to go back and redo the talk to make sure it works. Because like their hooks wasn't a thing then. Like component did mount was a thing. So now I got to go back and refactor all
Gotcha.
that. And then Connect Tech in November in Atlanta,
Yep.
Georgia, which is going to be dope. So far, that's all the rest of the events I had for the year. I was going to be at Tech Bash, but Tech Bash canceled their event at the Kalahari in the Poconos. So, but yeah, those are the events I'll be at. I don't think I'm doing any virtual events. I wrote off virtual events. I'm done with those. I won't do another virtual event again.
Mhm.
So yeah, and also I'm going to plug the DevRel team at Rocket Mortgage Tech, Rocket Mortgage. We are streaming now on Twitch. We had our kickoff yesterday, Meet the DevRel team. It's myself, Jason Bach, and Cassandra Ferris. My stream is called Front End Fun Zone with Chris DeMars, or as my teammate Alyssa likes to call it, Fridays with DeMars. So that's tomorrow, actually, 10 a.m. Eastern time. I will be doing a little bit of accessibility work. I'm going to be building an accessible component, a common pattern, a social media component using Font Awesome, React, and Aria, and explain concepts of Aria. I'll be doing that Friday. And then this, you can check the schedule on Twitch. It's twitch.tv/RocketDevRel for the other schedules and the people. Jason Bach is doing his stream is going to be all .NET C#. And Cass is going to be doing the human side of tech and branding and mental health. And we're going to also be doing interviews with people both internally and externally. So check that out. If you're not following, give us a follow. Yeah, just a little shameless plug there for the stream.
Hey, I'll try to show up and give you a follow. Definitely.
Hell yeah.
Well, I want to thank you, brother, for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
I appreciate it, man. I know we tried to like do this multiple times, but with COVID, then I lost my voice. It's been hectic, and you can't figure out time zones. So
no, I can't.
It's all
And
your fault.
Well, yeah, and I still probably won't by the next time we meet in November. So
yeah, in November you're going to be in the Eastern time zone, just like you were before you moved.
Right, exactly. And I have no reservations about moving now that I found that place that has North Atlantic lobster nearby.
Do you trust it though? But do you trust, like, there's no ocean right there, dude.
I did.
Come on.
And you know what? I trusted it and I didn't regret it.
Okay, well, hey, if you sign off on it, then that must mean it's good.
It is signed off. All right. So again, thank you listeners for tuning into the Front End Nerdery podcast. I'll be back next time with a new guest, new conversation about front end design development and other topics. If you would please rate this podcast on your podcast device of choice, like, subscribe, and watch on the Front End Nerdery YouTube channel. Links to transcripts and show notes will be there. And I'm Todd Libby. This has been the Front End Nerdery podcast. Thank you, and we'll see you again next time.
Peace.
Peace.